There once lived in Izumo a noble warrior named Kintaro. One day Kintaro and his retainers left their boats upon the shore and went up into the forest. They walked along a path that wound between flowering trees until presently it was lost, and there they found a curious stone house unlike any house that they had ever seen before. Going round it, they failed to find any door or window. But one of the retainers ran his hand along one side of the wall and discovered a crevice. This crevice widened as he ran his hand further upwards and finally turned into a hole large enough to admit the passage of a man. So Kintaro crawled through the hole, brushing aside a thick curtain that hung in front of it. On the other side, they found themselves in a long corridor from which several passages ran right and left. Before them they were dark and narrow, but behind them they were wide and airy and brilliantly lit. To Kintaro's intense astonishment, his sword gleamed so brightly that he could scarcely see its handle. Suddenly a deep voice boomed forth and said, "You are welcome, Kintaro." The voice seemed to come from all sides at once, and Kintaro drew his sword and cried, "Who goes there? Show yourself!" "I am the lord of this house," replied the voice. "And what business brings you here?" "I have followed my retainer Yamato Takaru," said Kintaro. "He entered this house and disappeared. I pray you, Lord, restore him to me." "Yamato Takaru," said the voice. "Ah, yes, he is here. But why do you want him back? You know well enough that he came of his own free will." "But I will kill him if he returns without my permission," roared Kintaro. "Very well," said the voice. "Then I will kill you." As soon as the voice had spoken, the whole house shook, and the darkness before them suddenly cleared away, revealing a vast hall glittering with gold and jewels. And in the center stood a giant armed with a sword as tall as a tree. "Have at you!" shouted Kintaro. But when he dashed forward with his sword raised, he realized that the hall was too wide to allow of his reaching the giant. His attacks always fell short of their mark, and the giant parried them easily. Just as Kintaro was beginning to despair of victory, the giant cried, "Enough of this trifling! Now I will slay you!" And as he advanced, Kintaro noticed that his legs were adorned with iron leggings. The giant waved his sword, and just as Kintaro retreated within his sheltering hall, the tip of the sword scratched across the wooden floor and made a furrow. Suddenly, Kintaro's eyes fell upon the giant's leggings. He recalled how his retainer had found the entrance to the hall concealed beneath a crevice in the wall, and he realized that the giant's legs were hiding another opening. When the giant leaned forward, Kintaro dodged under his arm and ran swiftly towards the opposite wall. The giant pivoted, swung his sword, and slashed the floor as Kintaro slipped between his legs and fled. He ran and ran, but presently came to the end of the hall and found that the darkness had closed up the exit. Then the giant strode towards him and brandished his sword. But Kintaro leapt lightly over the giant's head and scrambled up the wall, springing deftly from ledge to ledge. Now the giant was immensely tall and strong, but Kintaro found that he could leap higher and further than any mortal man. Now the giant made furious attempts to seize him, but Kintaro slipped out of his grasp and continued to elude him, leaping from pillar to pillar, while the giant broke sword after sword against the unyielding pillars. At last, the giant collapsed, panting heavily. "Oh, demon!" cried Kintaro. "Why do you oppose me?" "I wish to ask a favor of you," replied the giant. "Very well," said Kintaro. "What is it?" "Will you put me to death?" asked the giant. "I have been tormented by a serpent for 800 years, and I beg you to deliver me from this suffering by killing me." "That," said Kintaro, "is an easy request." And with that, he cut off the giant's head. The moment that the head was severed from his body, the giant vanished and a spirit appeared in his place. "Thank you," said the spirit, "for delivering me from my tormentor. I am the mountain spirit, and now that I am at liberty, I will grant you 3 wishes." "What are these?" asked Kintaro. "One is to become a warrior stronger than any man," said the spirit. "Yes," added Kintaro. "For this I have come to the land of the immortals, to learn some secret of strength from the spirits of this realm." "Well," said the spirit, "you have won the favor of the mountain god. From this day forth, whatever sword you wield shall be lighter than feathers, yet shall have the strength of 1,000 demons, and your spear shall be sharper than the edge of a razor, and your bow stronger than the cord of heaven. Also I will lend you my sword, that it may help you in your need." With that, the spirit produced a sword, threw it into the air, and caught it in Kintaro's hand. It was shaped like the crescent moon and shimmered with all the colors of the rainbow. "Here is my bow and arrows," said the spirit next, and he handed Kintaro a bow of pure white wood and arrows tipped with razor blades. "As for your third wish," said the spirit, "ask whatever you please." "I wish to return home," replied Kintaro, and in an instant he was standing at the spot where he had left his boat. His retainers rushed to meet him and cried, "Good sir, you have been gone so long we feared that you had been captured by the mountain god." Kintaro laughed and said, "Nay, I have something much better than that. I have acquired the power of a god. Behold!" And with that he drew his new sword, danced about with it, and cut down the trees that crowded around them. When they had recovered from their surprise, Kintaro's retainers cried, "Let us return to our lord and tell him of this marvelous tale." But Kintaro frowned and said, "Not yet. I wish to hunt a stag that is grazing beyond the hills. It is a stag with 5 great horns and a coat of many colors. I want to shoot it with my bow, whose string is as strong as the cords of heaven. Come with me." The retainers readily assented, and they marched on for 3 days until at last they saw a stag whose coat shone with 7 colors and whose antlers spread wide like those of a windmill. Then Kintaro drew his horn bow and shot an arrow at the stag. But the stag was so fleet of foot that it avoided the missile and darted into the forest. Kintaro pursued it. At first it seemed as if the chase would never end, but presently the stag paused to drink at a stream, and Kintaro fired another arrow. Once more the arrow sped straight as an arrow could go and stuck in the stag's back. The stag bellowed, reared, and fell in the thicket. Kintaro approached it cautiously, and presently the stag stepped out, bleeding but unharmed. Kintaro marveled and said, "What magic is this? By whom could such wonders be wrought?" "By the dragon god,"